I know you were tweeting about it recently, so let me ask you a question you're asked a million times. You feel as though the A's could be handling this potential move to Vegas better. Why is that?
Well, that certainly doesn't take a genius, because I'm not sure they could be handling it worse from a PR standpoint, from a time standpoint. And you're looking at a guy, it took a decade for me to get a ballpark in Miami. So I understand that these things take time. I had plenty of missteps, so it's easy for me to have a playbook where I can tell you what's going right and what's going wrong. The first thing is you've got to have empathy for the place where you may be leaving. You've got to show empathy to the fans, whether you're the commissioner or the owner or the president of the A's. Secondly, you got to have a done deal in Vegas. There's nothing for the owners to vote on right now. All they have is the public financing part. They don't have the stadium construction budget. They don't have the stadium financing plan full. And they don't even have their financial projections, a TV deal, nothing.
You brought up some great points there. You mentioned the TV deal. Let's expand upon that a little bit in terms of what we've seen with Major League Baseball and some of the regional sports networks going away. How will that impact potentially the economics of teams? You know, the Yankees have the Yes Network and the Dodgers are financially well-to-do. But how about some of these smaller teams in smaller markets, how they'll be impacted by the regional networks going away?
Yahtzee, you have just said exactly the big issue. The question that owners will have to decide: the amount of revenue sharing they're giving to the Oakland A's right now, will they be giving more, less, or the same to the Las Vegas A's? And if you're doing the same or more, then that's not a move that baseball wants to make. And in order to find out, you have to figure out your TV deal. And you can't just go to a cable company and do an RSN deal, because those deals are poof, they're up in smoke. So you've got to cobble together a digital deal while you are taking your streaming rights and monetizing them, while you're doing deals with cable companies for fewer dollars than what you would have gotten a year, 2, 5, or 10 years ago. So they've got a lot of work to do. Forget naming rights and season ticket holders and what the ticket prices will be. They've got to figure all that out before the owners are going to vote.
David Samson joining us here on Sharp Money. Frame the Shohei Ohtani situation for us. Nobody better to ask than you. I mean, what he's doing, David, 22 home runs. He got a win yesterday, 3.29 ERA. But walk us into the front office. Some of these teams that could potentially afford Shohei as he's going to be a free agent. Like, what are those discussions like right now around this guy?
So the question is, how many teams can afford two $25 million players? And the answer is more than just the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. There's many teams that can have two $25 million players, and that's what Shohei is. He's a middle-of-the-order bat, where if that's all he did, he'd be worth 25 or 30. He's a top-of-the-rotation pitcher, where if that's all he did, he'd be worth 25 or 30, maybe even Verlander and Scherzer's 43 on their own. So he's both. So you're actually signing two players. So if I'm Shohei Ohtani, my starting price is $50 million per year, and I think there will be plenty of teams in. The question is, how long do you go out? Do you do an 8-year deal, a 10-year deal? We saw a lot of long-term deals this offseason where you're throwing away the back end. In this case, how long can Ohtani be top of the rotation and middle of the order? It can't go on forever, can it? Well, we'll wait to see.
David, on that Ohtani theme, you guys just had a monster signing in South Florida with Lionel Messi coming over now, and we saw the impact that had for this program down there. If you're having been in the front office and you're looking at this, not only the impact on the baseball field, but Ohtani every fifth day is going to give you an opportunity to sell way more seats. He's going to sell seats on the days he's DHing. How much of the economics do you consider and his impact overall on the team from just a financial standpoint when you make this signing, besides his ability on the baseball diamond?
Yeah, it's not as close as you think. So let's just pretend. And we had Dontrell Willis, who moved the needle a bit. Jose Fernandez moved the needle a bit. But at the end of the day, there are very few players where people will say, I am going to become a season ticket holder for that specific player. Or when that player is pitching, I'm going to specifically go to that game. It's not even 5 or 10,000 people. So teams that tell you otherwise are not being truthful. You will get some Japanese sponsorship dollars that you otherwise would not get. And that's to the tune of maybe $5 or $6 million a year at most. So the only way that you're getting to 50 is no way. But what you're getting is a chance to win games, which the Angels have not been able to do. You're getting a chance to increase the value of your asset, and that would be my pitch to the owner. Let's see if we can bring in Ohtani and actually win and see what that does to our revenue base and to the value of our asset.
David Samson, Meadowlark Media, the podcast, Nothing Personal. Shout to DraftKings. It's great. CBS Sports. You had a great tweet at David P. Samson recently. I'll paraphrase. What the hell happened to the St. Louis Cardinal way? Let's talk about this team, man. They're 27-42. This is a disaster.
So it's great for my show, Nothing Personal, but I would like to give you some perspective. The Cardinals have had an unbelievable run of success, a sustained run of success, where now they're 14, 15 games under, and we assume the earth is flat and falling apart. I get that. All of that said, having a down year every 15 years, it's not really so bad. What happened here is that when you've got the reigning MVP, you've got the best third baseman in the game, you signed the top free agent catcher, you expect that you will be able to continue your run. And it just hasn't happened for them. They haven't had good starting pitching. They have not had good bullpen. They haven't had clutch hitting. Contreras has not really had the season that he expected to have. So you add it all up, and that's why they're so far below 500. It's made worse by the fact their division is terrible. So you feel like they've got a chance, but unfortunately they really don't.
David, take me through the process of a team that's kind of teetering just above 500, maybe a potential to get to the division, but more of a wild card team. You're approaching the trade deadline in 6 weeks. How do you decide you're going to make some moves, give up prospects, or you're just going to sit tight and hope to ride the ship with the current roster?
Well, if you're around 500, you're one run away from winning 88 to 91 games, and that's really going to be the difference in whether you make the playoffs or not. And as president of a team with expanded playoffs, you'd much rather be a buyer than a seller. The question is, the owners have to first tell the GM how much money can the payroll go up. Before every season, we actually had a budget item, trade deadline acquisition cost. So we would have money in the budget to bring on money. Some years we didn't hit our revenue goals, so we would then only acquire players if we didn't have to take on any money. Then it costs you more prospects. So the way it works in baseball, if the more money that you take on, the fewer prospects or fewer quality prospects you have to trade back. So that is the balancing act that you do as president. A GM would always like to take on money and save prospects, and that's ideal, but not always possible. But if you're around 500, you're saying we're one run away, an 8-2, a 16-5 run, and we'll be right there. And that's what teams do in that position.
David, look at the juxtaposition of a Mets payroll and a Rays payroll. What do you respect about the Tampa Bay Rays way?
I hate them. I cannot describe to you my level of jealousy of the Tampa Bay Rays. They are the bane of every president and GM's existence because the owner walks in your office, knocks on your door, shows you the standings, and says, listen, what am I paying you for to tell me to go sign Ohtani? I want you to find me guys I've never heard of and then find a way to win 90 games. That's bad for my career. And the Tampa Bay Rays have been bad for so many other front offices. The union can't stand them because owners look at them and say, we don't need a big payroll to win. The owners love it because they can lower their payroll and feel like they can still win. So on one hand, you've got the Mets, who every other owner is rooting against. 28 of them are rooting against the Mets and the Padres because of the way they're spending money so irresponsibly. The union is rooting for the Mets and Padres so that the owners will realize they've got to spend to win. So it's a problem because both the union and management can't be happy, and we'll see what happens. But so far, the Mets have been a huge disappointment, and Steve Cohen has to look at Stuart Sternberg at an owners meeting, give him the evil eye and look at him and say, we'll get you. That actually happens. Owners do look at each other that way when they're looking at their phones to see the scores. You never sit next to the team you're playing during an owners meeting at an owners meeting. Little nugget there.
I think it's a great. The best answer is David Samson saying, "I hate the Rays," because it's said with reverence. What they're doing is
So much
insane. It's incredible.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.